So today we're at a project in Salina again, where we do a lot of our work. Didn't do anything in the front yard this time. Everything's in the backyard, but we did like a raised planting area, lighting, some speakers for an outdoor sound system, putting green, artificial turf, river rock, a bunch of planting as well for different flower beds and trees and that kind of item. And so let's go take it back and see what it looks like. This was done probably took us about a month or so to actually get everything finished with this one. We took out a fence panel here as well as on the other side to get some heavy equipment in to do the tear out, and basically everything back here before was just grass except for the pool that's back here. So they had like a older system of planting that was over here that was just in the grass. It was muddy, uneven, it didn't have places to walk. It was a lot smaller, so basically we gave them a good planting area here, a good path to get down with everything. This is, in the future, we're going to add a shed over on the side here to store for the garden area, add a couple tables for doing plant prep, that kind of thing, but they're not going to need that for another couple months here until spring comes up before they do all their stuff. But we've got like lighting going along the path here. We did sprinklers on the back end, so that's one of those things you don't really get to see a whole lot. But we did sprinklers for like bubblers on the trees, so that way they all get their own plants watered, so that way it's done properly, because if you just put sprinkler heads, it's not going to get enough water for a tree to be able to grow on its own. And then made flower beds along the outside that go all the way across here. Basically, what they wanted was like a low to zero maintenance type backyard, so trees are real good, you just have to trim those every once in a while. River rock, you don't have to change out mulch, or they don't lose their color, they don't move around, so everything looks pretty much exactly the same in 5 years as it will today without having to do a lot of work on the under area. Like if you made flower beds this big, I mean, you're probably spending a couple $1,000s a year just putting mulch in. And then you got more weed problems, things like that. And then we also put this putting green in, which was a rather interesting story. Basically, we put in the first layer on there. It was probably about a 15 by 15, and customer came out, looked at it. He was like, man, it looks too small for the area, which I agreed with at the time. It was basically just like not even half of what this putting green is now. And so we actually went in, upgraded it to probably about a 40 by 40 putting green, added a couple more holes in here as well, some more complexity. So we added a few bumps. It's hard probably to see it on the camera. A few bumps on here. That side's a lot lower as well. So you have like different levels to actually compete with yourself with, as it were, to practice on as well. So that way you can do different hard levels, basically. So we didn't do anything with the pool here, but some things like speakers, we added a few, sort of like for the sitting area over there. They already had the system in here, we just added on to it, so that way we could have a couple more speakers going in through here. But down on the side here, we added more artificial turf, so no putting green on this side, just a nice good smooth area. It looks really good. A couple more flower beds on the side, speakers, lighting, and this is a pretty cool job. We actually showed up at the beginning just looking to do a path from the side of the house over to the gate. What they didn't know about was that we could do a 3D plan. So what they were planning to do was this in phases. They were planning to do just a little path here, maybe add a couple more things like with the flower beds later, but because we were able to make them a 3D design, we could put all the pieces together so they could see it, because they didn't know what they wanted. And they were afraid if they did the whole project at once, they wouldn't get what they wanted. They might be missing a piece, something might not look right the way that they wanted it. And so because we were able to make that 3D design for them, we were actually able to just do the whole thing all at once, which is cheaper, because when you make multiple projects, not only do you have to clean up multiple times, you have to watch about, like say we put in artificial turf and then added the rocks later. Well, we don't want to mess up the artificial turf when coming in with is about 3 dump trucks full of rocks and messing up the work that we already did that looked really good. And so when you do it all together, you can set everything up in phases, make it cleaner, everything fits together perfectly. You're not going to have to work with whatever space is left. You have the entire place to move things around, make them the space and the size that you need. And so basically turn that conversation into doing the whole backyard, because we were able to give them the advice they needed on what would look good, what would be good load maintenance, and then put it in the design so they could see it before they had to actually pay anything towards the project. So that made everything turn out really well and made it a lot simpler. It actually makes it a little bit cheaper that way as well for us, because when we have a design, the guys can get that for my crew leaders and the actual crew that's coming in, and they're not going to have any issues with wondering, what do we do next? They have a system process, they can see what it's going to look like, and things like French drains. So you can't see them, but they're in strategic areas along the side over here, going along behind over here out to the street. If we had put those in after the putting green, we would have had major problems, because drainage is a very important piece that most people don't think about. So you got to make sure that you have it, because if you don't, one of the issues they were having was a huge mud pot up there, and then tons of water were sitting right here, because this is like where the pool overflow comes from. It goes in this area right here. If we had just left rocks and green, there would have been all sorts of junk in here. There would have been some probably mold, mildew kind of stuff, algae that's growing on there, and it probably would have killed the trees, because the overflow from the pool has chlorine in it. And so that would have killed these trees going in through here. So now you've got a couple catch basins going in down here, leading out to the street, so all that contaminated water, as well as anything from rain, doesn't come in and provide too much water and kill it, because that can also kill it just from having too much and rotting the roots. So that's it. So over here, there's some steps. It looked very similar to this. It was just some basic steps. Had a salt finish, so it's a little bit better than what the normal concrete is. But basically that came out, and now put a floating step going up to the front of the house over here with lighting underneath each of the lips on there. And changes the whole front of the house. Instead of being very narrow, having a big front door, now it's like full going all the way up to it. And then on the sides of it, basically did chopped stone wall, had a travertine top that we put on top of this as well, giving it more of that modern look instead of it just being an open top on there. Black river rock inside there, so it's not going to change color, it's not going to decompose, it's not going to have anything moving around and floating, so it stays basically the same. As you can see too, did some lighting in here. Mostly desert plants. We did a couple of the sunshine ligustrums, which are pretty good out here, so not quite the tropical part, but they last pretty good in the summer, pretty good in the winter time, low water. Basically filled in some sod as well. There was something the builder had put in on these triangles right here, so you can kind of see where it's still, you know, fresh sod here. We had to move some sprinkler heads around on both sides where they had these like pie-shaped corner flower beds they wanted to get rid of, and basically just kept it clean up on front. Did a couple raised pots up there as well to take care of that shaded corner in there, and moved some sprinklers around, made a drip line to go through with it, and now it's all good to go and ready for everyone to see it in the neighborhood. So it's going to pop at night. Now it's got the lighting, as well as having those black rocks, white contrast on there. Stone we got matched the house as well, so if you can see the difference on the wall and the house, that is the difference between an Austin stone and what they call a nicotine Austin, where the nicotine Austin has a little bit of yellow streaks in there as well, and so that way they match up. Not my favorite type of stone, but you got to match what's on the house, or else it's not going to match and it's not going to look good. So it's the only way to go about it. All right, so today we're at another job that we did over in Salina, where basically this house was, we started on it before it was even finished. So they got us started before the builders had even given them the house. So before they moved in, they wanted to get all the construction done. Knew they were picking a good company that they could trust even while they weren't there. So what we did is just a couple plants in the front here for the most part. This is still what the builders put in, but we did the stonework up here. Something you can't really see is we have French drains that pop up over on the side here as well. Made a path going around to the back of the house over there. So we'll get to that when we get in the backyard here. And then we added some uplights as well. So at the base of the tree here, trees over there, and a couple of the pillars, we've added that. So that way it gives you that good nighttime glow, makes the shadows for the mystique aspect of everything. So that way you can see it when you're anywhere around here. When you're turning in, this house really pops out more than anybody else. And so most of the work was done in the backyard here though. So let's go around and take a look at that. So with this house, just like a lot of houses in Texas, had a muddy side yard that wouldn't grow too well. Even though they had just put sod in, they were trying to be proactive about it and get it done beforehand. And so we made this gravel path here that's easy to get in and out. Put a stone border on the edge instead of using just a bender board. It's stronger, holds in place longer. When you have rocks against it, there's a lot of weight. And also, so that way we can keep water from mixing in different places, because underneath the rocks we have more areas that are for openings, but like right here, this is an opening for a French drain as well. So that way water collects in the down areas and then goes out to the street. We have a couple more going along the side over here, and then adding a couple plants in here as well. So we have some good drought resistant yuccas, sunshine ligustrums, adding mulch in there as well, more lighting for the path as well as going onto the house, so that way it hits the house and adds more of the ambiance to that. And then did more stonework around the tree here, added drainage along that as well to let water out. That's very important along the joints. And then on the side here, it was just a big dead space that didn't really have any plans to do much. So basically turned that into a bigger path than I would normally do, but it fit for the direction that we were looking to go to with everything. Adding plants on both sides is also like where their master bedroom comes out, so they can actually like have a good backdrop for when they're looking out the window or in their living room. And they'll have a lot of light. So we've got path lights, up lights there as well, flagstone, river rock, and then basically wrap that path all the way along the side over here, going back out to the front. So basically they can get into their backyard from both sides of the house without having to walk through grass, mud, anything like that. So that keeps everything clean, organized, still have grass. They did want to have grass, so we were talking about doing artificial turf, but they wanted to keep more of the natural aspect of everything. So we just kept it with Bermuda, and that's about it.